welcome to this exclusive interview of now Jakarta, now Bali. We'll add on MVB, our sustainability program, to this recording as well, because today we're talking about something which covers a whole bunch of fields. We're talking about smart cities and livable cities. Now Jakarta is doing an article on smart cities, but everybody who lives in a city is interested in what a city should be. And everyone has their own opinion, but sometimes we come across people who are actually experts on what a city should be. And today I'm delighted to have with me Alwi Sjaaf, who, let me just give you a brief introduction of a long career so far. Alwi graduated from University of Indonesia in sociology, then went to Berlin for a degree in architecture. He then pursued a career in architecture and interior design, including some memorable projects like the Aula Sinfonia Concert Hall. And he spent 5 years then as director of PT Lipo Karawaci, getting detailed experience and one of the major developers in this country. He's been a speaker in major conferences, including many focused on today's subject: how social and green can we go? Human scale versus urban scale. Welcome, Alwi, to this interview. I hope that you are well in this COVID pandemic and look forward to discussing this in detail with you.
Thank you, Alistair. Good morning. I hope all of us are healthy and being blessed by God that we can still live together and being healthy in our condition.
Now, thank you very much. We're hoping we'll start to come out of this COVID pandemic. We've had a little bit of a setback recently with the Delta variant and so on and so forth, but we're now in the position to think we can build back better. The problem is, what is better? What is the meaning of better? What's your concept? Well, given the background you have in both in architecture and in sociology, and I believe you're now pursuing a PhD which combines both of those fields, the livability of cities and the way in which we live. Given your background, what do you think the concept of a great city environment should be?
Interesting question, and it's touching directly to the problem of the COVID. Also interesting enough that the first week of this month in June, the EIU, European Intelligence Unit, has published the list of the most livable cities in the world. And it has the first rank for Auckland, and then followed by Osaka, Adelaide, I think Wellington, Tokyo, Perth, and other cities coming as following. So the index examines over 30 differences factors across the 5 categories, indicators as stability, healthcare, culture, environment, and education and infrastructure. So in this time, I would say the EIU and all other components are looking strongly to the COVID issue, to the healthcare issue. And I think these cities, which has been elected, has put a lot of identity and put a lot of strength and put a lot of concerns in how the cities has been developed and been then elected to be the 10 most livable cities in the world. And to be more specific, I would say the WHO and the UN claiming that the 90% of the virus spread is taking place in cities. Then I think we should say that the cities are the epicentrums. I may go back to touch the issue about the globalization. Yes, the globalization has done plenty of benefits for this world and giving a lot of prosperities to companies and to cities and to peoples. But at the same time, the globalization also brought disaster, including the virus. Yeah. So without that globalization, I would say virus won't spread that fast and that intense. Yeah. Now, as human, I think we all are builders, and at the same time, they are all destroyers. We somehow think that the marvel of architecture and cities that we have built are great and useful for the human, but at the same time, we forget how this architecture, how these cities, the marvels of those what we have built could be used for human. Now, under the threat of this pandemic, we are unlikely have no space to hide, hardly to escape. Looking at our condition, working from home, the only option is hiding in the middle of the four walls and without any ability to enjoy all those marvels that we have been created or we claim to have created. Now coming to the definition better, I would say I am a lover of the European type of cities. And I also have to say that, and this is proven, that most of the cities in Europe are human-oriented, human scale. They are walkable, a lot of public spaces, a lot of public parks, and in a size, they are not that large. Yeah, so it's manageable and somehow self-sufficient. While the American and the Asian cities tends to be much larger in scale, very much car-oriented, not walkable. Example, I do not hesitate to mention Jakarta as one of these categories. Yeah, but cities has to be built in more reasonable sizes, avoiding the long commute time. It has to be walkable, and nowadays they are trending to say that it has to be a 15-minute cities. That means that you are able to arrive into any direction or any destination within the 15 minutes. Now, looking back to the cities have been elected to the most livable cities, talking about the sizes, then we can argue that Tokyo and Osaka has 19 million, Tokyo has 13.85 million and 38 in the Great Metro, but they are ranked in the 2nd and the 7th place. So what caused that? I would say those both cities have tried always to be advanced in their urban planning. So those cities, though, are very much car-oriented as well. You can also see highways everywhere in the cities like Tokyo, but the municipality have worked out tremendously. And if you go to some area in Tokyo, like Shinjuku, like Ginza, Omotesando, and so on, you will see that they are very much people-oriented. They are much human-oriented. People are still walking on the street. People are still able to enjoy the street. People are still able to communicate with the building next to the pedestrian. Though there are cars passing by, there are a lot of highways around the area, but you feel that you are treated as human. I think those categories have been very much worked out by these two cities. And I hope that cities like Jakarta, who has already been built as car-oriented as it is now, and as large boulevard as it is now, we are still having chances to go to be one of the most livable cities. Yeah. Osaka have, for example, consistently fares well for livability due to its compact size. So they organize their urban planning, their connectivities, and also managing the low cost of living. Yeah, while that are the issues in other places or other cities in other part of the world, is the cost of living getting higher and higher. I would urge the city builders or the city developers, both public and as well as the private, to prioritizing to build the people. I mean, look at the situation in Jakarta, yeah, where we are claiming the COVID situation is not well managed. But how could it be managed when all those people are living in the dense area, so dense that they are hardly could move, and they are coming from low income people, not high education, and certainly they are not proper hygiene condition, and very much community based, meaning that people are getting always around with each other. So how could we expect the spread of this virus can be handled in such kind of situation? So my argument is then that if we are not building the people, firstly, we are not concentration in building the people. We are not concentration to build the people improvement or the what you call the culture of better living or in the city. I mean, the building of the physical cities will just be continuing destroying the human. Winston Churchill has once said that first we build the buildings and then the buildings will shape us. So if we do not build the proper society, we are not be able to build the proper city. And for that reason, the city will also shape the people. So these are the circle that we need to review, and then also to restart to see what is the priority when we are building the cities. So not only the economical achievement to be focusing, but focusing in human. So when human is not focused as the orientation of the or as the priority of our city development or city planning, I think we are not going to anywhere. So to answer your question, what is a better world or better cities? I would say a better city will be a place where we are prioritizing human.
Very well argued introduction to this interview, Alwi. Uh, one of the distinctions that people often forget is the difference between economic welfare and actual welfare. By adding economic onto it, it seems to make it better, but actually it narrows it down. And it's not a good way of looking at it. And a lot of Asian development has been based on economic welfare rather than the broader definition of welfare. And I absolutely agree with you about European cities. Coming from Scotland myself, where we have 1765, James Craig laid out the plan for the new town of Edinburgh, and it still works today. It's a great city to walk around, and a lot of the American cities were based on his grid plan as well, though not quite as walkable as the European cities. Absolutely right. Make it human, make it livable. Now, a very funny little point on the way past, in speaking to the Japanese ambassador the other day about the infrastructure in Osaka, he said the underground in Osaka, while being comprehensive, is very difficult for the Japanese, non-Osaka Japanese, to understand how to use it. It's very complicated, which is quite funny. But they do have a comprehensive underground system, and above ground, as you say, people walk. We don't do that in
Yes,
Jakarta.
yeah.
Now, I talked about the grid plan that James Craig put forward for one of the first modern cities, but that's 300 years ago in Edinburgh in Scotland. Well, what do you think the guiding principles should be when looking at city planning? What or who are you inspired by to make a city great?
Lately, I have read a lot of articles and books from American sociologist and also urban planner named Susan Feinstein. Yeah, she published the book about the Just City, which has 3 dimensions according to her. First dimension is the equity, means that the city has to be able to distribute equality to people. Second dimension is the diversity, meaning that the city has to be diverse. Yeah, and if you look at the characteristic of this diversity. It has the diversity in terms of multi types of buildings and also multi types of people living in that cities. Yeah? So there is no discrimination. That means. And then the third dimension is the democracy, meaning that when a city has to be planned or to be built, it should involve, or the municipality has to involve the people, the community, to discuss about what is the needs or what are the needs of the people and how they see the cities and how they vision the city. So these three dimensions are very practical and also very important to my personal interpretation. And I would say that could be very well used for urban planning. So I mean, if you start to build a city or you start to plan a city without being able to spread the equality, without being able to absorb this diversity, and without being able to do it democratically, I do not think that that city will be functioning well for people. Yeah. The second name I would like to highlight is Dutch American sociologist named Saskia Sassen, who has a lot of journals and also books written towards the theme of the global city. So Saskia Sassen has pointed out that we cannot reduce cities to the status of moneymakers, which today, unfortunately, happening with more and more in the great cities. And the way Saskia Sassen look at the cities, he relate the globalization, meaning when the globalization comes into one area and it becomes the global city, which doesn't mean it has to be the entire city, but it can only be one part of the city, but the impact on it's shadowing the entire city to be the global city. And what brings the global city or the globalization to that city, you have the privatization. If you look at Jalan Sudirman, Jalan Tamrin, for example, which in the past, there are more lands occupied by the government or BUMN. Nowadays, they are more and more belongs to the private. So the privatization create development, which may be fair or not fair, equality or not equality, and all other these aspects for the social justice. And then also the digitalization puts also the cities into the different structure. And all these human transnational humans movement from other cities and from other part of the world to the global city create also the diversity, also create the inequality. So the social justice impact happen in everywhere. Yeah. So in modifying these two ways of thinking, the global city and the theory of just city, I would say it's very interesting to look how we then be able to plan our cities in a much better way, because both of these ladies are looking at how human can be included in designing a city, although the globalization wave is so big and so strong, so powerful. That is the reason why also we need to look at the human. So how we see the human can interact with that globalization, interact with all the capitalization coming into the area. And the other architect that I would like to mention is Jan Gehl. Jan Gehl is a Danish American architect living in Copenhagen. So Jan Gehl is the person behind or the brain behind the transformation of New York's Times Square from a busy street into a pedestrian-friendly street in 2008. Where is the location is exactly where the Broadway create a bow tie with the 7th Avenue and around 42nd to 47th Street, which was a busy street. And Jan Gell suggested to the city, why don't we just convert the street to become pedestrian, not without being uh, destroying the road, and also a huge effort to how to say to refurbish the street, but it's just simply closing the street, putting some street furniture, simple street furniture, and waiting for how the people of New York and also the tourists reacting. And the reactions has been very much unexpected, yeah, very well expected. The avenue has been reducing the how to say the accident issue to become a vehicular accident to become reducing to become 40%, and also pedestrian injuries. But at the same time, it created a tremendous revenues for the stores around the area to be 400%. So look how powerful are the people, who look how powerful are the pedestrians. You know, at one point we may argue that when we close the street for pedestrians, there are no cars coming in, there are no traffics coming in. That means we are reducing the economical scale in that area. But look at what has been done in Times Square. It closed the pedestrian to become pedestrian. It closed the street to become pedestrian, but at the same time, the revenue has been tremendously increased to 400%. Now, Jan Gell always wants people to experience the city on foot and in public. So he said that the city has to be able to be enjoyed by people when they are walking around. In looking at the Copenhagen in the early 1970s, when other part of the world are trying to build cities with a lot of cars, a lot of highways, boulevards, and so on, Copenhagen started to reduce the cars in the area. So they closed plenty of these streets in the city center, and turns up Copenhagen to become walkable cities and reducing the cars in the area and putting the cities to become very friendly. Yep, I would say those are the three directions that I would like to see how the cities in Jakarta or Indonesia to be built or to be planned. If we walk now in Jakarta or in other part of the cities in the other part of the Indonesia, say Jalan Tamrin or Jalan Sudirman, is hardly to be able to walk. Yes, now the pedestrian has been wide by the government, but what can we do in the pedestrian? Look at also the other cities in, for example, Denpasar. When we see Bali in also Seminyak area, there are a lot of streets, shops around the area, but you can hardly walk. You can walk up and down. There are a lot of rubbish everywhere, and the pedestrians is not in a one level. You have to go up and down, and all other things are happening in that street. Yeah, so it is difficult for us in Indonesia to walk. I'm dreaming of those areas when I was, remember when I was a little boy, my father took me to have an afternoon walk or morning walk where we can walk in the cities, we can walk around, and then to have some food next to the stores and so on, where people are still treated as human and people are still be able to communicate. Now, when you drive the car passing by a street, and you look at one area that you would like to go down, then you have to find a parking area to go down, and then you miss all these moments. Yeah, I have to say the Just City would be a direction combined with what Jan Gell putting as a pedestrian issue. So everywhere, if you walk around, you can be able to communicate with the cities, you can be able to communicate with the building, you can be able to communicate with the people. I think that would be the direction, Alistair.
I think that's an extremely well argued point. We thank you very much for that. I mean, I'm 100% in agreement with you. Having walked around Rome, spent an entire week without getting into a motor vehicle, and Rome, you can walk everywhere from a central point. It is a delight to walk around. Paris is a little bigger, but you can still do it at a little bit of use of the metro. London, even the central area of London, the parks, everything is accessible. It is well planned. And here, when the government put in the new pavements, the trottoirs up and down Tamrin and Sudirman, a lot of people rejoiced, but I said, we don't need it because nobody walks from building to building. There is no reason to walk there. So we don't need the same areas. You need to make the city livable before you make it walkable. And they haven't quite thought that yet. That's very, very well argued. I'm delighted that you have done that. Now, we have got a problem with Jakarta because it has become a quite difficult city to live in. We've had traffic jams, we have pollution, we have congestion, we have waste, we have so many different challenges. So the government came up with a solution to say, let's just abandon Jakarta and take the government and therefore all of the people who work with the government to, guess where? Kalimantan. Let's take over 200,000 hectares of Kalimantan and make them into a new city. Do you think that's a good idea? Should we have a new capital in East Kalimantan? Or should we try and
the
make
government or all of
Jakarta
us
better?
are afraid of Jakarta being covered by water. Yeah.
Yes, well,
So
that's another. Sorry, that's the other thing is, of course, the sinking of Jakarta as well. Yes. So should we have a new capital city, Alwi, or what do you think?
I will put myself in a position neither to be pro nor to be contra. Yeah. It's a good idea of try to build or plan and build a new city. Nothing wrong with that. And also Jakarta being left or not being left. But I would just come back to my argument. Yes, we can build the new city, we can develop the new city, but please do it with the prioritizing of human. So human-oriented has to be the first priority. I read some of the articles of this new Ibu Kota Baru, and I said that to admire the government who has tried to put a lot of green area. They are saying that 75% of the whole area will be dedicated for green. So they will put a lot of attention to the environment. But again, without prioritizing human, I would say the city will just be a dead city. So when you prioritize cars, the city will full with cars. When you prioritize some other things, the city will be full with some other things. But if you are prioritizing human, the city will be full of human, will be full of people. Yeah. Now let's touch about Jakarta. I have a lot of critics towards the street that we have mentioned before, Jakarta, in Jakarta, Jalan Tamrin and Jalan Sudirman. Measure the distance of one building to the other building opposite to it. Yeah, it has about 90 meters. 90 meters is almost the length of a football field. Yeah. So I mean, to be able to cross from one building to the other building, crossing Jalan Tamrin Sudirman is impossible to cross unless you take the jembatan penyeberangan. Yeah, but it is so difficult to cross those streets. Yeah. Now, then coming back to my question, is the human scale there? Is the human prioritization there? I don't think it's there. So when you walk in Jalan Sudirman, Jalan Tamrin, you feel like a tiny little creature in the middle of millions of cars. Yeah, I'm exaggerating. It's millions of cars, and the scale of this, the walkway, the scales of this, the skyscrapers. Yeah, I'm not against the skyscraper. Look at New York, look at London, look at Singapore, or look at other city with the skyscraper. You are still be able to walk comfortably, but not in Jakarta. Now I criticize that because also the setback issue in Jakarta, yeah, from the road, then you have the pedestrian, and then you have the pedestrian, you have the setback, and then you arrive to the building. So all those distancing issue created uh, the strangest impact to the pedestrian. So when you walk in the city, you walk on Jalan Sudirman, Jalan Tamrin, the distance to the buildings is so far away. While when you walk in, for example, Fifth Avenue in New York, you will be able just to enter the shops or to enter any buildings because it's just simply permeable. While here, you need to pass through the security if you're lucky, and then you have to pass through the 6 meter of setback or 7 or 8 meters setback, then you arrive into the building. I'm sure because this building, the cities have been planned, or this building has been planned to be accessed only by cars, not by human. Now, this is the issue of Jakarta, and I hope in the new capital city, whatever you want to name it, let's see the cities from a different perspective. We have to admit that in the 1960s, when Jakarta has been developed to the metropolitan, there are certainly the issue of cars. Yeah, the mass production of cars has been spread into the entire world, and also Jakarta certainly got the impact. And then we built the city with the orientation to the cars. Now, we were once very proud and very delighted to see, wow, such a big boulevard. When I was a little boy and arriving in Jakarta, I was saying, wow, this is what a city is this. And then if you go to other cities in other part of the world, especially in Asia, where this development city being built, you will see also this large boulevard issue. But then if you look further to the current situation, how are these cities going to cooperate with the people? It's difficult. That's why we are complaining about the traffic jam. That's why we are complaining about the long commute time from one place to the other place. Once I had used the MRT from Ratu Plaza to Plaza Indonesia. It took me about 10 minutes or 15 minutes with going up and down. And my car, who has to follow me, who's supposed to send me to Plaza Indonesia, arrived 20 minutes later. Now, using our logic and common sense, why then we need to use the car? Last days, I read in the newspaper that the municipality of Jakarta are now proposing to increase the parking fee. So it will cost you like 60,000 an hour. Great, let's do that. Yeah, I mean, then you can be able to reduce those cars and the carbon dioxide issue. Yeah. But the government should not also forget to build the other infrastructure, because you cannot go into the street without also looking and also repairing and furnishing the other part of the street, yeah, the secondary street, which can come to, which bring you to one area to the other area. So I would say building a city or planning a city is not that easy. Yeah, it's an issue of surely the beauty of the city, the nice looking of the city, but there are a lot of social issue. They are the diversity issue. And when you look at Jalan Tamrin, when you walk in on the street, yeah, to all those people coming from the different stratification, feeling comfortable, if I would say those low-income people, do they have the right to the city? Do they have the right to go everywhere in the city? I don't think they do have the right. Yeah. So the government or the planner should look at this social issue. The social justice issue, the social injustice happen and taking place everywhere in the cities. Yeah. Going back to the new Ibu Kota, I hope the city planning will be able to take more care in terms of people, in terms of public spaces, in terms of equality issue, in terms of diversity issue. And I would say, why don't the government put us all together, yeah, get the people together to discuss about what kind of cities that we need or the people need. Or also about Jakarta, when it's being left, yeah, why don't we gather all these people, the community, the experts to discuss about what should Jakarta be for the people? When it's being left by the government, are we dying, or is this even a better place to live because then we feel more humanized? Yeah. One issue I would like to touch is actually, if you look at the our ideology, if you look at Pancasila, yeah, Pancasila has been called the best, the strong foundation of the state, a great philosophy of a nation, a perfect ideology of a country. And in Pancasila, we do have in these 5 principles issues that I have been mentioning. For example, the diversity issue, the democracy issue, the just and civilized humanity issue, and the social justice for the whole of the people of Indonesia issue. And if we just put all these 5 principles of Pancasila, yeah, because sometimes we are very nationalist that we don't want to pick theories from other part of the world and claiming that we are the most nationalist people in the world. Yeah. So why don't we just look at these 5 principles of Pancasila, and if we apply those or materializing these 5 principles into the cities, into a planning of cities, I'm sure, Alistair, we will be able to arrive to the just city. We will be able to arrive what Yangel was mentioning, what worrying Saskia Sassen, I think, or other planners in the other part of the world, and also the worries of people living in the cities. I think we can beautifully, perfectly arrive to a city with this Pancasila. The problem is that we do not want to, or we don't have the democracy atmosphere in designing a city. So it's always coming top down. Yeah, it's hardly doing from the bottom or what we call the bottom up. Yeah. If we can combine these 2 approaches, I think we will be able to arrive in beautiful developed cities. Yeah. Certainly, we will say again that if we involve those people, the community to discuss with us, whether they share the same value, whether they share the same education level. Now, this is coming back to what I argued before. So before we build the city, or while we're building the cities, we should actually also building the people. So where is the education of the people? Where is the structure of those people to be in the future, while we only structuring the physical city? We forget about building the human. We forget to build the society. So then we keep on blaming them and pressing them that they are not sitting at the same level as we are. It is simply because we do nothing for them. So the government has actually come to the conclusion, build the people. Yeah, prioritizing the people, build the society, build the community. And at the same time, we plan the city, we build the city. Because otherwise the diversity issue, the inequality issue will always take place, and it will be happening in Indonesia forever and ever. So when you go
Well,
to a place, if you go to a place like Bali, you buy a piece of land and develop to become the 5 stars or 6 stars hotel. Where are those people going? They will just smashing out of the place, and then they will just maximum to become manager if they could be, or they just become the cleaner or the gardener and so on. So I think those how to say, those setup has to be clearly warned to the government, and we're taking seriously to see, without building the people, we won't be able to build a city.
that is why we invited you, because you're bringing together the whole sociological impact of education into the development of cities, which is what is absolutely needed. Cities are built for people, by people, and really to add to the enjoyment of people. They're not built by governments for governments. And one of the things that we've allowed to happen, of
Otherwise,
course,
why
is
we build cities?
the return on investment. Build something that's so big you get a huge investment. I think we now have over 100 super blocks and malls and in Jakarta alone, which are okay once you get in them, but you can only get to them, as you said, by car. And that is what we've replaced our friendly walking streets with, is the mall environment. That's where we walk. Our Fifth Avenue is round the streets of the plazas. Um, Alwi, thank you very much indeed for that deep insight. You didn't actually answer whether we should have a new capital or not, which is absolutely the right way to go. Who knows what the right answer is? From my perspective, I think we should make Jakarta better, because otherwise we're abandoning a city in some ways and saying we can't do it. And at the same time, we're taking 200,000 hectares of very good arable land and using that for an urban environment, which we don't need any more urban environments. We need brown developments, not green developments in the future. But your viewpoints are very well taken. You're bringing together the whole human aspect together with the development aspect. And on behalf of now Indonesia, now Jakarta, now Bali, we'd like to thank you very much. And we hope that you will become one of the people who the government turns to when they look to make Jakarta a better place. We wish you luck in all you're doing. And we'd like to thank Alwi Sjaaf very much for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you also for inviting.